started. Good evening and thank you all for coming. Meet the Candidates has not actually convened since 2018. In 2019 we had an unopposed race, so we did not have a Meet the Candidates, and then the pandemic has pretty much put this at bay. So I'm glad we're all able to come together. I want to thank all the candidates for coming tonight. It shows that you really are passionate about what you're doing. We're going to change the structure just a little bit because there's been such an influx of questions coming in. A lot are very similar. If you don't hear the exact wording of your question, please do not take it personally. We have just tried to make them all on the same general type of question. We originally had set the terms to be a 3-minute opener per candidate. They'll give you a little bit of background, tell you what they plan on doing, and just a little bit about themselves. We will start always with the first person. They're lined up as they are on the ballot, so this way you have a frame of reference for when you vote next Tuesday. We will start with Cheryl. Cheryl, I'm sorry. When we do start, we will start with her because she's the first on the ballot. When we go to ask questions, we then start with the following person. So this way not everybody's always in the hot seat. I will introduce each candidate, although I'm sure you already know who they are because there's been signs everywhere. And please pick your signs up afterwards. Just kidding. If I don't pronounce your last name correctly, I apologize. So the first seat is Cheryl Miggins, Virgil Capillari, Ariana Demon, Carrie Cahill, Marie Johnson, Dan Pena, Anthony Ciro DeLulo, I can't see the L, and Eddie Slowshower. So thank you again all for coming. We will now get started with an introduction. I ask that we follow some rules. There'll be no public participation. Your participation has already taken place by putting in questions, either in advance through email or on an index card. There will be, I have to say this, although I don't really think I have to, but we're in a school, so there'll be no disruptions. If there are, I will pause the forum and I will ask the individual or individuals to kindly go out in the lobby. And we'll be respectful. There'll be no pointed questions to any particular candidate. If the question has been written that way, we will have rewritten it in a way where it is just a general question, because our goal here tonight is to hear each perspective of all 8 candidates. If I ask a question to you and you don't feel that you know enough about them, then you do not have to answer it. If you do not want to take up all the time, you don't have to either. Because the candidates are willing to answer more questions this evening than we had originally set, they're also willing to decrease their time in their responses. So instead of having 6 questions with 2 minutes responses, we're going to try to do at least 7 or 8 with 1.5 minutes because there's just been so many questions. Okay? So Cheryl, if you wouldn't mind, please just make sure your mics are all off. Cheryl, if you'd like to do your introduction, please. Thank you.
Sure. Good evening. My name is Cheryl Miggins. Can everybody hear me?
Yes. Speak a little louder.
Okay. Let me see if I can bring a little bit. Does that help?
Yes.
I have lived in the district for 20 years. I've raised 2 children who are graduates of Royce Ketchum who came through district schools. And I've been very involved in the district for over 17 years. I became a parent advocate and a parent activist the day my son entered kindergarten at Fishkill Plains Elementary School. I sent him for a half-day kindergarten program and learned that his bus ride home from a 2.5-hour education program was a 2.5-hour bus ride. I called transportation. I had that situation taken care of for him and the other 11 children on his bus in one day. Since that time, I've fought for students and for parents on a number of issues. I've been a regular attendee at school board meetings for at least a decade. Before that, I used to turn out for the budget meetings and ask questions and learn as much as I could to be an educated voter. Over the years, besides advocating for special education students and families, I advocated against the implementation of Common Core, and from some of my discussions with people in the district on my views, I was chosen to represent district parents in a meeting with the Commissioner of Education when she was traveling around to hear all of the negative feedback on Common Core. I also was an advocate in the redistricting movement, and I was not happy with the one-size-fits-all because I thought that the solutions to the problem on the north side of the district should have been different from the solutions to the problems on the south side of the district, and that we should have looked more comprehensively at each school's situation. I also was part of the opt-out movement, and there were years when my children opted out of the 3 through 8 testing. There were years when one or the other decided there was a test that they wanted to take. I have been active since 2012, when the Board of Regents changed the graduation requirements in the state to allow for the goal, to limit to the goal of a Regents diploma for all students. I joined with parents and special educators around the state, and we lobbied, pushed, had meetings with the chancellor, and were able to bring in the safety net. Okay, I realize I'm coming to the end of my time, and I will turn it over to Virgil.
The microphone's on. Virgil, if you'd like to do your introduction. And just for those who do not remember, you have a timekeeper on the floor. They'll give you the 15-second warning. I know we went over this before, and then just wrap it up if you can. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Virgil Capillari, and first and foremost, I'd like to thank everyone for coming out this evening, as well as the PTA for helping host this event. Very much appreciative. I've been a resident in the greater Fishkill area here for about 11 years, going on 12. My background is rather interesting here. Aside from being a Hudson Valley native, upon my graduation from high school, I went off to join the military, and I got to spend some scenic tours in some lovely destinations like Bosnia, Kosovo, Iraq, Middle East, and I spent the remainder of my career working in various national security positions, and I'm a retired special agent for the Department of Defense. Everything and anything I've done has been in defense of this nation, this community, and keeping us protected from folks looking to do very bad things. Winding it back now, I kind of look at my own upbringing. I'm the child of immigrant parents. Before they called it English language learning and every other acronym, I was the butt of the joke as a young man, young kid in school, both having to learn English later, to my parents' native languages first. So as I approach this, I'm trying to take a look at it from an internal and external perspective. My goal and what I'm hoping to achieve is making anything and everything I do student-focused. My #1 goal is to get as many students as possible back into classrooms. It is an enormous challenge. It's been a challenge before COVID, through COVID, post-COVID. Rather than point blame, rather than point fingers, I'm looking for solutions. I'm willing to work with anyone, with any group, with any advocates who are aiming toward that, because at the end of the day, all children in this district deserve the best education possible. That means all children and no one should be left out. When I'm talking about left out, what I'm talking about is that we have some very serious chronic absentee rates amongst the lowest rungs of the economic ladder. According to the New York State report card, we're showing that African American students have a chronic absentee rate of approximately 14.2%, Hispanic or Latino 15.7%, English language learners 41%, students with disabilities 20%, economically disadvantaged 20%. These rates are simply unacceptable.
Was that the end of your sentence?
No. The other sentence I was going to say is, I pointed out a challenge there. I am here to put solutions forward. Given my background in my military, the service to this nation, and my willingness to stand up for what I believe in, I'm not here to simply just discuss topics. I'm here looking for solutions, and the best idea wins.
Thank you. Can you just make sure you Ariana?
I want to thank everyone for being here, and I want to certainly thank Lori and RCK for hosting this. My name is Ariana Dingman. I'm a parent, and that's been my main focus on why I got involved in wanting to run for board. To be frank and honest, it wasn't something that I was looking to do. I just saw a lot of things happen in the last couple of years where parents had a lot of concerns. And a lot of them started to show up at school board meetings. And yes, some might have gotten more upset than somebody else would. But the fact of the matter was they had a right to speak. And what they were concerned about were real concerns, whether they were whether children should be locked down for 6 months and out of school, or should it go on the whole year. I know my daughter suffered from it. I saw a lot of people's children suffer from it. So parents, in their own hearts, knowing what's best for their children, felt they needed to come to school board meetings. And what we found across the United States were many people were made to feel like they themselves were the enemy, that they didn't have any business saying what they felt at the school board meeting, that they felt excluded, and I saw that happen. I felt that people needed to respect what parents felt. And that's common sense, and that's why on my sign I say common sense, because I like to work with everybody. Everyone has a point and a viewpoint that matters to them because of where they come from, because of their background. So I don't discredit anybody's own issue. It's that we need to be able to feel we can be in a safe place at a school board meeting and share that information. So what I found was that we also faced in 2021 where parents were almost made to feel, I want to just reference this. The National School Board Association in 2021 wanted the Department of Justice to label some parents as domestic terrorists. Okay, so that's when my red flag went up and I said, you know what, I'm gonna get involved. I wanna help everybody, I wanna be an advocate for parents, and that covers everything. That covers what they learn in school with needing more math and arithmetic in school. They're basic studies that a lot of kids can't add, and they're in high school and they're graduating and in college. I met a girl who was in the mall working at one of the stores, and she said, I can't even figure out making change because they never covered that, they're rushing through it. That's not right for the kids. It's just common sense. They need more time on math and arithmetic. Just as my background, I mean, I'm from Queens, so you might get the Queens accent. I have 2 children. I have a daughter that's going to be coming to Ketchum in the fall that I look forward to, and I feel that there needs to also be extra help with what we went through. Okay. All right. Well, thank you very much for your time.
Thank you, Ariana. Carrie?
Good evening, everyone. Thank you for coordinating, Lori, and thank you to the Ketchum community for hosting. Thank you to everyone for the questions that will be forthcoming. I have a business background. I'm a mom of 4 current and former Wappingers Central School District students. I graduated from the University of Maryland with a finance degree, and I've been in the business world for about 22 years. I am a current trustee, and I made the decision to seek, union endorsement. So I forego the union endorsement. However, I am endorsed by Moms for Liberty as they align with my value system. And that value system and the pillars and the things that are important to me are as follows. First and foremost, at the beginning and the end, are the children. I'm sitting here right now because my passion lies right there. The second pillar, of course, would be my rights as a parent. So parental rights are second, but a very close second. With 0 mandates, I believe that we parents and caregivers know what's best for our children and should certainly have a voice in the outcome and the decisions made for these children. And third, of course, is fiscal responsibility. As a taxpayer in the community for 20 years, I certainly want to have some say in how my money is spent. Last year, actually 2 years ago now, as I witnessed the isolation and my children suffering, I began to count the cost. I used my instinct as a mom. Within a couple of weeks, I realized that what my kids were being subject to and the cost of what they were subject to was worthy of my time and my energy, as well as all of the other thousands of kids in our district. So what I did was I took action. I took a stand. And as a result, thousands of parents took a stand with me and voted me in as an independent. I'm still sitting here because my passion is just as high as it was. Again, to just reiterate, I'll do it a second and a third time, it's for the kids. It's the kids at the beginning, it's the kids at the end. It's the parents making decisions for their kids. What I believe should happen in school buildings is core subjects. Just like it was for me, math, science, history, social subjects at home with families, decisions made by parents with how that information is conveyed. I believe in diversity of thought. I believe in the diversity of our student population. I believe that that should be embraced and carried through because it's led to innovation and progress throughout our history. And finally, I embrace the Constitution, the Bill of Rights, our Pledge of Allegiance. When you consider the words that we utter, they mean something. Liberty and justice for all, of, by, and for the people. Thank you all very much. Again, I'm here for the kids, the parents, and our community members that all should have a voice. Thank you.
Thank you, Carrie. Marie?
Hello? Is it working? No. Okay, don't start my time yet.
You're done.
No warning.
Hi, my name is Marie Johnson. I am a current Board of Education member. I have been in the community since 2004. I have been a parent advocate, both for special education and for students in general and their parents. I want to thank Sheaf Road Elementary, Evans Elementary, Wappinger Junior High School PTAs, all three of you guys chipped in and made this night happen, and RCK for actually hosting us in their building. Thank you guys very much. I have been sitting on committees for multiple years before I started on the board. I attended every meeting except for two in 2 years before I got on the board. I never missed a meeting. I sat on 4 different committees, and I did a lot of time. I worked on the communications committee and several others, capital improvement, legislative action. We worked on some special education things that we brought forward, some great surveys that we did to get better information to help try and button up some of that stuff. Average time that I spend a week, probably 20 hours a week on Board of Education, and that's on a slow week. That's your meetings, that's your regular emails, and then this time of year, I'm probably looking 30 to 40 hours a week, because the best part of my job right now, because this is a non-paid job, is I get to go to the honor societies, the plays, the games. I get to go to the arts in the park. I get to go to all of the graduations. That's my paycheck. That's what I do, is to see these kids and the amazing work that their parents and teachers have put into them. My passion's in the district. Special education has always been close to me. My daughter is special education. She's Asperger's, and yes, that's how I started getting involved. I fought to help keep Evans open when they tried to close us down. And I went head to head with a couple of people. I believe Miss Java was one of them, actually. It was many years ago.
You're going to tell me that now?
You know, our relationship with the board should be one to reach out to our community. I've always said, if you have a problem, email me, call me, text me. I'm willing to meet with anybody. We have to have a relationship with our co-board members. We have to work together. We're one of 9, and that's all you can do. And then we have to have the administration as well. I'm hoping to do 3 more years. I started in, COVID hit, and it has not been great fun, but that I am hoping you are going to give me another chance for 3 more years.
Thank you. Dan?
My name is Daniel Penna, and I was raised in Queens. Went through parochial school there, and both in elementary school and high school. Moved out to Michigan for a while, went to grad school there. Had my first job there, met my wife there. And then my parents fell sick, so I decided to move here to the Hudson Valley where they had moved to take care of them. And since that time, I needed to find a job. So I started teaching, I started tutoring at the Silver Learning Center. I started teaching online. I've actually been teaching online since 1999. I did that back in Michigan. I taught at Dutchess Community College for about 10 years, Mount St. Mary College another 10 years, in both full-time and part-time capacities. I taught at Ulster, Rockland Community College. Right now I'm full-time faculty at Westchester Community College. I've even taught GED classes in Spanish for Hispanic students so that they can get their GEDs and go on to college. And so in the past 20 years I've seen a big change in education. And it's no secret that college enrollments are dropping, and they're dropping even more now because of COVID. And also the grades are dropping. It now takes on average about 3 years to get through a 2-year degree. And that's because students have to take a lot of remedial classes. The reason I'm running is because, like Virgil, I'm seeking solutions. I want to know what exactly is going on that our students are not prepared for college. Again, I'm not saying that college is for everybody, but if you want to go to college, it should be an option, and students should be prepared for that. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Anthony?
Good evening. My name is Anthony Ciro DeLulo. I'm a God-fearing, Christ-believing Christian. My faith defines who I am. I'm 32 years of age, born August 22nd, 1989. My sister Michelle and I were born and raised in a small town in Bergen County, New Jersey called Elmwood Park, just 5 minutes south of Paramus. My parents, Bob and Maureen, they were born and raised in Riverdale in the Bronx. I moved to East Fishkill with my family in 2004 and have been in Hudson Valley ever since. Upon graduating high school in 2008, I first attended the Pleasantville campus at Pace University, and then I finished my degree in their New York City campus. I graduated cum laude with a BBA in finance in 2012. I pivoted my degree into my first position as a financial advisor, having successfully passed my Series 7 and Series 66 examinations. I had then become a certified financial planner at the age of 28, where only 4% of all CFP holders were able to attain that designation from the age bracket of 26 to 28. At 29, I then opened my own wealth management firm, DeLulo Wealth Management. At my peak, I helped my clients manage $16.7 million in assets under management. No small feat for a young and solo entrepreneur in wealth management. In April of 2020, I wrote a 10-page white paper entitled The Man Behind the Curtain. My paper called out the fraudulent and private bank known as the Federal Reserve. Our money is false. It is in fact a Federal Reserve note, and it is not a US dollar. One of my pillars for my platform is that we must educate the youth on money, real money. The private bank, Federal Reserve, and Wall Street banks are destroying this country from within via inflation. I am running on the following. I am running for school board first and foremost to bring God through the teaching of Jesus Christ back into public schools. I seek to restore parental rights. Children are the exclusive property of their parents, not the school district. I seek to have more skills-based learning, such as farming and trades. I seek to educate on the Constitution. I seek to educate on the fraudulent private bank known as the Federal Reserve. I seek to educate on fitness and healthy eating. I seek to make sure that muzzles, AKA masks, never come back to school. I seek to make sure all vaccine mandates are done away with. I seek to prevent CRT and the LGBTQ, XYZ, ABCD, EFG agenda from coming into the curriculum even further. And I seek to end the sexualization of children. I know I shall be questioned on God and His place in public schools. In our Constitution for the state of New York, what is stated in the preamble? We the people of the state of New York, grateful to Almighty God for our freedom in order to secure its blessings to establish this Constitution. From the Declaration of Independence, we hold these truths to be self-evident that all men are created equal, that they are endowed by their Creator with certain unalienable rights. My brothers and my sisters, to deny God is to deny the foundation of this blessed nation in the several states. Thank you.
Thank you, Anthony. Mr. Sloshower?
Thank you, Ms. Java. My name is Ed Sloshower. I've lived in the town of East Fishkill for the past 19 years. I'm married. I have a daughter still attending school in the district at John Jay High School. I'm a current sitting board member. I first got involved in the district back at Fishkill Plains when my wife and I joined the PTA. At that time, we saw a lack of reading skills and issues with kids having access to books. I partnered with my wife to take over the PART program, Parents Reading Partners, turned it into a year-long program with year-round literacy all through the summer. Submitted an application, and the program won the PTA New York State PART program for the year for having the first year-round literacy program. We also donated 6,000 books to fill all of the teachers' classroom libraries, as well as giving out books to all students who wanted books to read. Obviously, it was very successful. Was not a fan of Common Core as that was being rolled out. Decided this was not something that was positive, became more involved, attended board meetings for about 3 years before running for the board, which I've sat for the past 6 years. I've missed a total of 3 board meetings in the past 9 years. I'm all about the kids. I'm all about what's best for kids. Parents' rights, yes. Making sure things aren't taken away. I'm very concerned right now moving forward with learning loss because of the pandemic, which is another reason why I want to continue on the board. We need to work together to help these kids. This has been a tremendous, tremendous problem, and we cannot dismiss it, as well as the mental health issues that are coming along with this. Another thing is we need to bring back more vocational. We implemented some additional courses for this year. Want to continue that work and expand on it. In my last 6 years, I've been part of the Capital Improvement Committee to help rebuild the infrastructure of this district. For the past 3 years, I've chaired that. We're in a beautiful auditorium with Broadway lights and Broadway sound, which I'm very proud of that work throughout the district, high schools. Also, I created the Legislative Action Committee 6 years ago when I joined the board. We've sent numerous letters to New York State to advocate not only for parents, but for students, general education, and special education for lack of funding that the New York State continues not to give school districts throughout New York. This school district is still owed close to $40 million with regards to the gap elimination, if those of you remember that from 10, 12 years ago. That money we still need. Moving forward, I want to continue doing the work with regards to capital improvement. I also want to continue, as I said, expanding vocational programs. I want to protect all of our students and make sure that they're getting all possible education that they need, as well as our district staff having the resources to help all of our students.
Thank you. Okay, at this time, we're going to move on to the questions. If you feel that you do not have enough information or you just don't want to answer it, you can just pass. Marie and Daniel, I will hand you my microphone when we get to your table. I will repeat the question each time if you need it. If you feel that it's a simple enough question where you don't need me to repeat it each time, just let me know. We're going to start with Virgil. We have had a lot of questions. Most of them are very similar. We've tried to make them concise. And we'll start with probably one of the most popular ones right now. So at the time we ask the question, you'll have 1.5 minutes to answer it. With your introductions, I let you finish because I think it's the right thing for the audience to hear about what you're about. But when we get to the questions and you see the timekeepers give you the 15 seconds, please wrap it up because they will stop you. Okay. So the first question, Virgil, is can you give some examples of how your prior involvement in the WCSD has been inclusive and incorporated the needs of all students?
Well, I don't have any previous involvement with the WCSD. Due to my various employment, other things. So that question right there would kind of be a non-starter. So.
Okay. Do you have any ideas in the rest of your time of what you would like to do?
Sure, I would like to do. I would like to get these students back into classrooms. Why? Because if our lowest rungs of society and our disadvantaged people aren't getting in classrooms and getting educated, what exactly are we doing? This ties into everything. This ties into supporting student success at its core. And it's been a problem that's been happening for years. What else do I want to do? I want to be a voice for those employees, those support staff who feel like they're the ones getting the shaft. What do I mean specifically? I mean, I sat at a board hearing the other night and I heard teaching assistants talking about fighting for a basic wage. I talked to a handful of nurses, bus drivers, who feel like they're not getting their fair share. If we don't have to support people in line, we have nothing else. And if we're not supporting our parents, we are not supporting anything else.
Thank you. Ariana, would you like me to repeat the question?
Yes.
Okay.
Thank you.
Can you give some examples of how your prior involvement in the WCSD has been inclusive and incorporated the needs of all students?
Well, I would respond as I was involved in 3 different committees in the Wappingers Central School District, and one was the Code of Conduct, another was the reopening, which I thought was very important because I wanted to be a part of helping kids get involved and getting back to school after, in the summer of 2020, this is when the committee meeting was held. And subsequently, some things were not used, but I wanted to be there to be a part of the social and emotional help supports that kids would have, because it was very traumatic to all of a sudden have, not just your school lockdown, but to have the whole world shut down. I mean, it was a lot for all of us. So that was involving everyone in the school community, and I was also involved in another committee that helped, I have to put it in front of me. The other committee was Communications. Thank you, Cheryl. So that's my involvement with the school district, but also personally, I volunteered at the Children's Home in Poughkeepsie, and I did that for a couple of years until the shutdown, because I wanted to help kids. My heart was with helping the children because they were most vulnerable, and that was something that was very special to my heart, and I feel that projects who I am, that I really do care about kids. It's not about money, and I'll do whatever it takes. Thank you.
Thank you, Ariana. Carrie, do you want me to repeat the question?
What comes to mind for me really is 2 years ago rallying a community of parents. I mean, if that is an inclusion, just rallying people to have their voices carry, to have their voices matter. I don't believe that the schools should have ever been shut down. I believe that there were members of our world population that needed to be protected, and our children suffered a great deal. And we're seeing the fallout right now, right? I mean, we're worried about catching up on learning loss. We should never have had to go through this to then play catch up. So again, inclusion, every parent, every child 2 years ago, carrying their voices, working together with them to try to get them a voice on the school board. I believe very strongly, as you said, futuristically, in asking Virgil, moving forward, what's important to me is maintaining the diversity that exists in our country, in our world. I believe very strongly in diversity and making sure that we embrace it, our history, and our current, because that leads to innovation and progress. That's what I believe. Thank you.
Thank you. Marie, do you need me to repeat the question?
I think I got it.
I have been on the Community Communications Committee for the last 6 years. I have chaired it for the last 3 years, and I'm proud to say that we were able to get the new website mostly up and running by this point. We're still working out a few kinks on that. I'm very proud of that. I've been on the Capital Improvement Committee for 5, going on 6 years, I believe. The work that has been done on the infrastructures of the buildings has been absolutely amazing. And I continue to work on that. No matter what happens, I will definitely follow through on that. As far as what I've done around the district, I have tried to volunteer for other committees, which I have served on. I have volunteered at different schools. I have put my time in for meetings, and that means doing a lot of homework. A lot of people don't realize the amount of homework that we do for a board meeting, because we have to read so much information, and that includes our financials every single month. And yes, I review the 100 pages of financials and go through every line. I read the CSC reports, which is 100 pages every 2 weeks. I read all the different things that we can come up with and the budgets. I plan on continuing that as I go forward.
Thank you. Daniel, do you need the question repeated?
If you would, please.
Can you give me some examples of how your involvement in the WCSD has been inclusive and has incorporated all the needs of all students?
Well, I haven't been involved in the school district that much, but throughout my career, I have been pretty inclusive. I've taught students of all ages, ranging from 5 to people in their 70s. I've taught classes that were 100% female, 100% male. I've taught in other languages. I've taught in high school, which I neglected to mention in my introduction. But generally, when people say inclusivity, they're talking about race. But I think that also stature is also very important as well. And I was at that board meeting also that Virgil mentioned, and I heard the teachers' assistants there talking about their economic plight, and I think that that was very heartbreaking, and I think that they need to be included in the benefits. They are part of the educational system. They're included that way. They should be included with respect to the benefits that all teachers are getting. Thank you.
Anthony, can you repeat that?
Yeah, thank you, Lord. Okay, so for my involvement with the WCSD, again, this is my first time running for the school board. I've showed up to school board meetings before, and school board meetings have been shut down because I've refused to wear the muzzle. That's my involvement with the school board. You may disagree with what I have to say, but I am honest and straightforward. You can work with me with that. And when it comes to inclusivity, and I believe what Daniel just said, it goes into race. Race is something that's used to divide in our country. And we have enough division, we have enough fear, we have enough hate in this country. And the teachings, and I always love carrying my Holy Bible with me, is that we are all equal at the foot of the cross of Jesus Christ. Jesus does not talk about race in the Gospels. Again, race is something that is completely made up by these governments that just seek to divide us. And any involvement that I have with race is just, it's complete nonsense. And if I were to think about myself as a redhead being so small in part of the population, and just qualify me as a race, that would be complete nonsense. Again, we're all brothers and sisters in one love. And one thing that I have done with children is that I have taught a constitutional course with the Righteous Rangers, which is a homeschooling course. And I'm very proud of that work. And again, you may disagree with me, but I will shoot you straight on anything that you may ask. Thank you.
Thank you. And do you need me to repeat the question?
Sure.
Can you give some examples of how your prior involvement in the WCSD has been inclusive and incorporated the needs of all students?
Thank you. Just to expand on what I had previously stated, one of the programs I created within the district was a board liaison position to all of the municipalities within our district boundaries. We've been running that for close to 5 years now. The relationship has proven to be extremely successful as I've been able to work with the town supervisors to create internship opportunities for students, also other opportunities for them to fulfill their community service requirements for graduation, as well as potential job opportunities. So I'm very proud of that work, partnering with the town. Also, just getting back to the Legislative Action Committee, I've always been an advocate for our students and what's best as well as protecting their rights as well as parents. Back towards the December of 2019 into the beginning of January 2020, I had drafted in committee with the help of some committee members HPV letter to send to the governor, where that should be a parent's choice whether or not their child should receive an HPV vaccination. I was thankful that board members were in agreement with the committee, and that particular letter passed and went on to Albany. I recently, at the beginning of this school year, drafted a letter, same thing with vaccinations for COVID. It needed to be a parent's choice in consultation with their physician. That, unfortunately, did not pass. But that is something that I strongly advocated for, and that's part of the work that I have done in the Legislative Action Committee in order to help all of our students. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, Ariana, we're going to start with you on the next question. Oh my God, Cheryl. See? Go right ahead, Cheryl. Would you need me to repeat it?
Thank you. Now I have the question. It's one of my core beliefs that every child needs to feel included, accepted, and supported in their classroom, and that every family needs to be welcomed into the school and school events. For 17 years, as I've said, I've been very active in the district. I was active in PTA in 5 different schools. I've been a special education advocate. So I have worked individually to help students and families fight for the least restrictive environment for them to be included in classrooms. I have been a big proponent of the inclusion model for special education and for a pilot program that they developed here in Royce Ketchum when my daughter was a junior, where they used the same model to integrate ENL students into the classroom with other native English speakers to help enhance their learning of the language. I have, as a room parent, as a PTA president, always looked at who's on the margins and who's being excluded and found ways to bring them in. I've advocated to administrators when I found out that some of our parents who are immigrant parents who did not speak English were not getting all of the information that other parents were, that were being sent home. So I found avenues so that we could reach out to them. I have, in parties and events that we put together in the schools, made sure that there were foods available for all students who might have had dietary restrictions.
Sure.
Thank
Sorry,
you.
stop was upside down. That's why. Thank you. All right, Ariana, we're going to start with you with the second question. Do you believe in mask mandates, and would you require kids to wear masks in the future?
Okay, thank you for that question.
Sorry.
I do not agree with mask mandates. I think it's completely up to the parents to decide whether or not their child should have a mask. And that's based on science. It's not a political issue. I've followed this with, I won't get into the details of the science, and if anybody wants to email me, I'd be more than happy to share information. But the fact is that the CDC even said that cotton masks are not safe. They're full of germs, that kids were breathing them during this year with dinosaurs on them and pictures, and they weren't safe, so no, masks were not good. The surgical masks are limited too. But I will say, if someone's gonna sneeze and there's something in a droplet, you could wear a mask, that's fine. I think everyone should do what's comfortable for them at the same time. And there are certain masks like the N95 that can be wonderful. So I'm not against people certainly making that choice, but that's common sense again. Make the choice for yourself. Let the parents make the choice. The children will be fine. They're resilient. We've gotten through this. And so for mask mandates, I would be against mask mandates and in the future as well. Thank you.
Thank you. Carrie, do you need me to repeat that?
I am about 0 mandates, masks being one of them. I know that I, as a parent, know what's best for my child, and what I would do is follow the science. And not only did the science not dictate that these masks should be muzzling the children, thank you, Anthony. Further, the children would leave the school buildings, and on weekends they would congregate, and on sports fields, and all kinds of events, and they were all over each other. And so that undermined any of what should happen in that medical field that should be sterile. In addition, how many times a day did they adjust these masks and introduce bacteria, germs, all kinds of things. So now the mask just basically housed said bacteria and germs and viruses. So now what we're dealing with actually, after all of that, is some more fallout. Children are anxious, very anxious. They will continue to be anxious. Some of them are wearing the masks as some type of security feature because of the anxiety. Also, it makes children, again, pulling us away from diversity. It makes them all look the same. Their expressions, the expressions of their teachers, which I know I loved as a young person, all of that, void of all of it. There'll be a lot more fallout from these masks. I am about zero mandates and parent choice.
Thank you. Marie, you want to check?
No, you're not one. Don't start with that.
I stopped it.
Okay, I'm a sitting board member and I had to follow the state guidelines. Whether I like masks or not, it is a personal choice if you want to wear them. But when it came time to opening the schools, my choice was to vote to put the masks on the children or fully remote. Fully remote did not work. I had to make a choice. I made the choice. I wanted the kids in the classrooms, and that's where I went with it. Unfortunately, I didn't have a third option of no masks at the time. None of us sitting on the board had that option. So unfortunately, I had to go with one of the two choices given to me, and I did what I had to do. It's not a popular choice. I wasn't happy with it. I don't personally believe in them, but if that's what it took to get them back in the classroom, then that's what it took. But if a child wants to wear a mask, because that's what they're comfortable with, or a family, because we don't know the health problems in their home, then that is also something we should not hold against a child or hold against a family. We were given the choice. Several districts down in Long Island, I know it was pointed out to me over times that they fought it, and the next morning they got served with papers. They would have been removed. So I had to do what I had to do.
Thank you. Daniel?
Well, I am a scientist. I got my PhD studying viruses, and I can tell you that everything about COVID and all the regulations and mandates don't make one bit of sense. So I am against the mask, and I think that masks themselves present a problem. I think they actually send the wrong message to children. Basically, we're telling them that they're disease carriers. So I think so I'm against masks, and number two, I'm against mandates. Not just mask mandates, but all mandates, vaccine mandates, and what have you. And I'm against mandates because I'm an American. I think that the government should not be telling us what to do. We should be telling the government what to do. Thank you.
So, you know my answer? No way to muzzles. No way. And what Dan explained as a scientist, it says it all right there. It's like trying to stop a mosquito with a chain link fence. Those things do nothing, absolutely nothing. And if New York State were to tell the Wappingers Central School District, which is an independent school district, to put muzzles on children, and if I'm elected as a board member, I will be outside going around to the schools with my bullhorn that I carry in my car to tell them to take that dang thing off. They have no right, the government has no right to tell us sovereigns what to do. They try to put those muzzles on the children, and if I'm on the board, I'm gonna be a real bulldog, because I'm tired of this. I'm real tired of this. It's disgusting what's happening to these children, and these muzzles are part of it. So no way, Jose, are those muzzles coming back. Thank you.
Thanks, Lori. Just kind of to echo what Ms. Johnson said, as a sitting board member, you take an oath to follow state education law. Unfortunately, not a position that I myself was comfortable with. But again, as Ms. Johnson pointed out, we were given two options, either in classroom with masks or remote learning. Remote learning was a failure. Everybody tried to do their best, parents, teachers, even the kids, but it did not work. And given the choice, and given the decisions that were made by the superintendent and the administration to give every student as much in-person instruction as possible, that was the direction that we decided to go. I think most of us were hoping when school started in September, within 30 to 60 days, the governor would have eliminated any type of mask requirement. Omicron came, it turned into something political, and unfortunately the kids were stuck. But again, we were put, as a board, in a very difficult position. It was one or two, damned if we do or damned if we don't. Was I happy with the decision? No, because it wasn't something that I believed in. But I believed that the kids needed to be in the classroom, and I weighed the options. So, not something that I was happy with. I don't believe in mandates. There shouldn't be mandates. The kids should not be masked. It has caused irreparable damage. And as I said earlier, between the mental illness and mental health issues, this is something that we have to come together as a community, and we have to work to help these kids.
Cheryl?
Like most of the others, I'm completely against mandates. I don't like being told what to do with masking, with the HPV vaccine, with the COVID vaccines. I believe that for adults, it's their individual choice, and for children, it's the choice of their parents. Throughout this whole situation with the schools, I teach at DCC. We were remote for an entire year. When we went back last fall, it was with both a mask mandate and for the students, a vaccine mandate. And so I had to watch how my students had to conform to those SUNY rules to be able to attend class. When they started enforcing in full force, I watched as 5 of my students were administratively removed from my class, and there was nothing I could do to help them except to try to get them into some remote classes. I advocated with my campus administrator once things started opening up and saying, why are we still wearing masks when everything is still opening up? Public schools now have the masks off. We are still being forced by SUNY to wear them. And so I advocated through the entire pandemic against these types of mandates.
Thank you. Virgil?
I'm against mandates. I'm especially against these mandates because once again it diminishes parents' rights, which is at the crux of everything that happens with a child on or off school grounds. So I'm specifically against New York State Senate Bill A as in Alpha 8378, which is proposing forcing a COVID shot to physically attend school. And I'm also against New York State Senate Bill S as in Sam 3041, which eliminates parental consent to shots when a child reaches the age of 14. This is something that's floating out there and I think every parent should be wary of. If you're legally held liable for what your child does in a whole bunch of other areas, how could not getting a shot be something you should be concerned with? I'd be more than happy to discuss this after the event. So I'm not in favor of it. As far as I'm concerned, a parent makes the determination as to whether their child will wear a mask or not. End of story. I'm not here to question, judge. I am merely here to support and help that child receive as best an education as possible. It's about transparency and accountability. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. We just want to make sure we started with Ariana last time. So we are going to start with Ms. Cahill now. What are some challenges facing the WCSD currently?
Well, I guess
The elephant in the room, of course, is the COVID fallout. Catching these kids up, trying to get these kids back to competitive. You know, one day they're going to enter, you know, the workforce, the world. They're, you know, going to take care of us by making decisions for us one day. So we need to be competitive. Lots of countries around the world are doing some pretty great things, and so now we have to play catch up from COVID. Some other challenges, you know, the medical stuff, you know, the threat of, I think specifically in New York, which is really unfortunate, the threat of parents losing their rights. The bills that Virgil mentioned and others are sitting there, which will rescind parental rights, parental decisions. And I can't help but think that these kids could go out and do things as minor children and end up at our doorsteps. And we are to handle the medical consequences of these things. I think what's at stake and what's being threatened is our Constitution, our history. I think that these are things that need to be preserved. I think that there's a lot of things that aren't broken and they don't need fixing. Thank you.
Thank you. Can you repeat the question? What are some of the challenges facing CSD?
Some of the challenges facing WCSD, well, I mean, everybody's going to say COVID. We have a severe learning loss. We have mental health issues due to the learning loss and COVID that's going on. We have anxiety levels for these children. We can tie it to the masking. We can tie it to the being out of school, the lack of socialization. We can do all of that. I believe we're trying to address that with more social workers and guidance counselors in our new budget. Another thing is vocational. Again, we're trying to address that and bring more vocational back to our schools. The community getting involved. It's something I've always asked. Come to the meetings. You know, we sit there and there's nobody sitting in the room. I have an email, it's on the board website. I don't get emails for, you know, can you help with this situation? We don't get that. It's kind of discouraging because everybody's saying parental rights. Well, the parents do have a right, and they can come and they can talk to me, and I have asked to have coffee with many people and I get no response after that. So I'm there. If you want to talk to me, call me.
Thank you. Daniel?
I think that probably the problems that are going to be affecting the Wappingers School District are the same that are going to be affecting a lot of school districts around the nation. I think the erosion of parental rights is one of them. I think that that's been going on for decades now. I think the introduction of material that schools really have no business teaching, especially younger children's, is another problem. Things like critical race theory and gender fluidity, especially at the very young grades. I think taxes is another problem. I think a lot of people are moving out of New York State. The reason they're moving out is because of their taxes. That's the number one reason. And I think that taxes not only have to, we have to stop the taxes from growing, we have to reverse them. Taxes have to get smaller, budgets have to get smaller. Thank you.
Thank you. Anthony?
Yes, I think one of the bigger things, especially for the community at large, especially since we're in an inflationary, recessionary environment, is that according to New York State, Wappingers Central School District has about 10,645 students across 15 schools. Last year's budget, 21-22, over $250 million, $256,403,547. As of April 11th, 2022, the proposed budget, and I believe that's the final budget they're presenting, is $265,714,022. If you take that current budget and you divide it by the number of students, that brings you to about $24,961 per student per year. That is a big problem. There is something off with this equation. And again, I'm a certified financial planner, say I was, and my father's a certified public accountant. I would love to get my teeth into that budget. I would love to learn about it a bit more. And of course, I'm gonna follow what Dan said as well, is that, and I'll say it a little bit more directly, is that we need to end the sexualization of children. We cannot have these books, such as Gender Queer, teaching these students. It's disgusting what's going on, and I'll call it for what it is. That is child pornography. And we have to stop it, and we have to end the sexualization of children. That is a big thing with the school district. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Solitaro?
Thank you, Ms. Java. I know I've said this over and over again, and so have some of the other candidates. You know, learning loss is going to be a big challenge. Mental health, not only our students, but our district employees as well. You know, they have kids too going to school. You know, we have to take that into consideration as well for what their well-being is going to be. So it's collectively everyone who either works or is a student here, and even people within our community that we help support in different ways. Obviously, expanding our vocational, I think, would be a bit of a challenge. We're looking to bring programs back into the buildings and not rely on BOCES so much to help create more opportunities for students. I think that's going to be a challenge moving forward. And a couple of other things, just to make people aware. In the planning boards of the town of East Fishkill and the town of Wappingers, there is close to 1,000 new homes, okay, waiting to be approved. Okay, so when we talk about student population, where are we going to put these students? If you do the quick math, 1,000 homes take an average of 2 kids per home on average. I'm being conservative. That's 2,000 students. Okay, Gayhead is 900 students. Okay, there isn't any room for the Stormville area, but we have 500-600 homes in the works for that area. Wappingers also has another large project. So that's something we have to consider. The other important thing moving forward when we talk about budgets is unfunded mandates that New York State forces us to pay and doesn't give us money for. Last count, there's somewhere around 130, 135 unfunded mandates that cost taxpayers millions of dollars. You want to help maybe reduce the budget, or legislatures need to fight for the money.
Time. Thank you, Eddie. Cheryl?
We have a number of challenges facing us, but I think community is at the center of how we can approach facing all of these challenges. If we look across the nation and look across our smaller community, we are a divided people. We have people who are pushing for one set of values and ideas on one end of the political spectrum, and a group who are pushing for an antithetical viewpoint on the other end, and a lot of people are lost in the middle. We're seeing people angry, and everyone wants change, everyone wants stability. What we need to do is come together as a community and have the honest discussions, decide what the community wants, what the parents want, and move forward. We can then address things like learning loss, working together, parents, school, community, as to how we can help our children get back to where they should be. We should also look at questions like Virgil brought up about our staff. We have at least 3 bargaining units in the district where employees are earning at poverty level. We have teachers who are starting out at the minimum level, and 82% of our budget is their salaries. We need to have the difficult conversations to figure out as a community how we are going to solve these issues.
Thank you. Perfect. Virgil.
All right. In addressing these problems, I want to point out something. This is not meant to point fingers at anyone. It's just to acknowledge what is the elephant in the room. Chronic absenteeism doesn't bode well for graduation rates. Rather than sit down and read down a litany of numbers showing higher numbers of our lowest disadvantaged students are not making it through, not even showing up, not even participating, the chances of success are greatly diminished. That has to be dealt with. Second, the district, I think, has a big problem with outsourcing. And what I'm talking about is the amount of special needs students that are leaving the district spending up to an hour each way going to BOCES. How do you think that makes a student feel? They're being ripped away from their friends, from their immediate community, and they're being transported to distant parts of the county. Why aren't we managing this in-house? Another problem of outsourcing is your bus drivers and your transportation. I know what some people said. It's only after the issue was surfaced. And by the way, if a lot of bus drivers feel the same way I do, that tells me there's a big problem. Third, parental rights. Where are the parents to deal with this chronic absenteeism? Where are the focus groups where the district is engaging them? These are problems that require solutions. We can make it happen.
Thank you. Ariana?
Okay, I can speak very candidly from experience with the challenges that were in the Wappingers Central School District. Well, the first thing is the challenge is obviously the parents need to be able to be heard. I think that's very important that we are part of decision making and our voices are taken seriously. But that being said, I was on a couple of committees in the past few years that turned out to be quite fruitless, I'm sorry to say. I was on the communications committee for a year as a graphic designer. I proposed different websites because I found that parents found it very confusing to navigate when their child would start Ketchum or any school, like the codes and the names and the numbers and IDs and this, go to this one. And long story short, I designed a brochure and I said, let's let parents have this and they can see it. And this is on my own time, and that went nowhere. And what I find is there's a lot of bureaucratic meetings and committees, and honestly, they don't go very far. With the reopening committee, I spent hours figuring out different tools and things that the kids could have to help them get back to school. Maybe it helps if there's, just be creative. I was part of the emotional side of it. I said maybe they could have animals, or we could have dogs, like sometimes there's therapy animals, and it met with nothing. Very sad. So what I'm going to say is that there's definitely improvement to be all around, and that some of the committees need to improve to help parents. Thank you.
Thank you. Marie, I'll read the question and then I'll give you the microphone.
Oh, you started.
I did. I got so many questions.
You started with me, Lori.
Yeah.
Oh, you did?
See? And I thought I was going crazy. You don't want to be in the hot seat. I said, you don't want to be in the hot seat. Do you see the proposed 2022-23 school budget increasing the tax levy of 0.83%, which is more than 0.5% than the permitted New York State tax cap budget-to-budget increase, as positive? And do you support or oppose the proposed budget, and why? Sorry, that's a lot for a minute.
No, it's okay.
I'll stand back here.
Okay, the proposed budget, yes, I do see it as a positive. I am happy to say that for the last 4 years, I have sent wish lists, both as a community member and as a Board of Education member, because we do get to do that, of things that we would like to see brought back. Over the years, some community people have brought back cursive and other things. Marching band was one of the things I asked for. SROs in the junior high schools is something I asked for. SSOs in both of the junior high schools I asked for. I asked for more psychologists. That all came on there. As far as the budget, it is online, and I can tell you in my bag, I have 7 years of line-by-line budgets, which is online. You can get them. Every year before I came on, I have compared every single line for every single school. We have it, it's online, it is available to any community member, and I have done it. I have spent hundreds and hundreds of hours comparing years all the way back to 2012 of what has been spent in this district. I do believe it is a positive budget this year. And I believe that a contingency is going to hurt some, because we're not going to be able to add on some of the programs that we're really looking for, which is vocational and mental health.
Sure. That's a big question.
Sorry. Do you see the proposed
22-23 school budget, increasing the tax levy by 0.83%, which is more than 0.5% less than the permitted New York State tax cap budget-to-budget increase, as positive. Do you support or oppose the proposed budget, and why?
So again, we have a situation that's unsustainable here. Taxes are going up, people are moving out. That leaves a smaller population with a greater tax burden. Now, supposedly this tax budget is under the tax, the budget now is under the tax cap. However, there is also a $20 million bond proposal for capital improvements, another $2 million for buses. So I don't see that as something being positive. For that reason, personally, I'm going to vote no on the budget. And I think that the situation has to be reversed. We have to stop the budgets from growing. They have to get smaller if we're going to maintain our population. My thoughts about this was that I was going to leave New York State, but I decided to fight. Like Anthony, I'm a Christian. I really do feel the call of God to run for the school board. And that's the only reason why I'm staying. Thank you.
No, I'm good, Lori, thank you. I don't know how the school budget can be a positive when it's over $250 million for one school year, back-to-back years. Again, 10,645 students, $265,714,022 for the proposed budget. Again, that's about $24,961 per student per year. That is outrageous. Again, we are in an inflationary and a recessionary environment. The dollar, again, is not a dollar, it's a Federal Reserve bill. And the Federal Reserve is printing it like it's going out of style. So we're going to see inflation continue. And how can we justify these budgets keep increasing when the taxpayers' discretionary income keeps decreasing? This is unjustifiable. And we need to get on the school board and look at this and say, where can we cut? Where can we negotiate? Because we can't burden the taxpayers anymore with $250 million budgets every single year. So no, the school budget is not a positive. And with Daniel, I agree, I'm voting no on it. Thank you.
Did you want me to repeat that?
No, that's okay, thank you, Lori. Yes, I support the superintendent's recommended budget. This is the first time ever that superintendent has brought a budget under the tax cap, and being fiscally responsible by going through the budget and finding excess monies in different departments to put them back into programs for students. So I think it is a huge positive. Things Marie had said, we're adding SROs, officers. We're also increasing our vocational. And when we talk about the budget, okay, it's a $9 million increase this year, okay? $3.5 million of that is an increase in health insurance premiums. It's also almost a $10 million increase over the last 3 years. Our Medicaid increase over the last 3 years has gone up between $1 million and $1.5 million. We have contractual obligations. There is no money being added on, okay, just for the sake of adding it on. BOCES expenses have gone up. Okay, also remember that in the state of New York, the hourly wage, minimum wage has gone up every year for the past 3 years. There's payroll tax on that. These are just unfortunate increases that school districts and everybody has to deal with. With regards to the capital bond is 58.3%, is aidable. We also have 7 to 8 million of old bonds rolling off. It's a difference of about $1 million, $1.5 million. We have the money for the debt service on that. With regards to the buses, it's the same money every year. We rotate, it's the same bond in and out. So it's the same money. We're not increasing anything.
Thank you.
And the last thing is boards control about $8 million of this budget. Everything else, we have no control over.
Thank you, Mr. Slowshower. Cheryl?
Thank you. Yeah, this turn to proposing a budget with a tax levy increase is under the tax cap is something that I've been waiting for a long time. And I will be supporting the budget, and I will tell you why. We are the 9th largest school district in the state of New York. We employ 1,800 people. As I said before in my previous answer, we're not paying a lot of these people a lot. Teachers start at the state minimum wage for teachers in this district. Mr. Sloshower mentioned the impact of minimum wage on our budget. We have 3 bargaining units that the raise in minimum wage every year over the past 3 years has significantly increased the percentage increase in salaries for employees along in those bargaining units. Those salaries and benefits are 83% of our budget. What are we going to do? Are we going to cut down on teachers? What's our class size going to be? We can't cut down on bus drivers. We don't have enough now to transport our students. Are we going to cut down on the paraprofessionals in the classroom so that we are negatively impacting the students who need their supports in order to learn? This is a people-based budget. The vast majority goes to fund the salaries of the people who work for us and support your children. Thank you.
Thank you. Virgil?
By and large, I'm somewhat undecided because I can see the positive and negatives. First things first, I find it kind of ironic that no matter where I lived in the United States, anytime there was a budget question, the first thing to get cut was sports. I will not tolerate a situation where sports are being sacrificed. Sports have played a very important part of my life, others' lives, many students. You develop leadership skills, you develop a whole set of educational attributes which will serve you through a lifetime as well as myself. So I kind of don't like the way that the sports and certain other programs are held hostage. On the other side of it, there are numerous senior citizens who've reached out to me and who I've spoken with who've been paying to support the district more than 50 plus years. We have to show a little more constraint and compassion. And to my previous comment, my comments regarding chronic absenteeism and BOCES, why are we outsourcing? What sort of accountability are we tying to the constant spend and increase? What are the results we're seeing? We want the best and we want to ensure that all students have it. However, just constantly increasing it and then saying we're doing good isn't really doing good. We owe a better explanation as a career public servant. I know this and I've lived it.
Thank you. Ariana?
Can you repeat the question? I'm sorry.
It's okay, I was ready. Do you see the proposed 22-23 school budget increasing the tax levy by 0.83%, which is more than half percent less than the permitted New York State tax cap budget-to-budget increase as a positive? And do you support the proposed budget and why?
So as a layperson, I'm not going to pretend I understand all the math, but what I do know is smart money. And I think whenever there's a proposal, it's always best to really sit down and take a look and see where the money is going. Now, some improvements for schools are wonderful. Some of the improvements with like the arts and keeping certain programs are wonderful. I think that when you talk about this budget, I would probably say I'd like to investigate it more because I always feel like whenever there is some kind of discussion where it almost sounds confusing to the layperson, there's more in the details. The devil is in the details. And I see it as we need money to help a lot of different programs, but one that I will say, you gotta cut the fat out of certain things. And one, I was on a board meeting listening in, and money is talked about going to electric buses. And personally, I don't think that the need right now after this pandemic and after what everyone's gone through and all the concerns we've all discussed here, that the concern is to get electric buses. I don't think that's a priority, and that's going to cost a lot of money. So I would revisit what the choices are. So that's that. I would hesitate on the budget. Thank you.
Thank you. Carrie, do you want me to repeat the question?
No, thank you.
Okay.
So I think it's important to have foresight, and I think it's important to project, and I think decisions we make today are going to cost us tomorrow, i.e. electric buses. They'll say that doesn't cost us anything today, but tomorrow it will. So will year-round schooling, salaries, utilities, busing, year-round schooling. Think about tomorrow today. Enrollment is down. There's a mass exodus from the state of New York. Enrollment is down in the district. What I don't understand is at $25,000 per student, thereabout, I actually am part of the exodus of students and the enrollment decrease in that I have 2 sons in a private school right now where I pay way less than $20,000 a year and they are getting a quality education. I don't understand why there are like-kind districts in the area that are at a 0% increase. I believe that salaries need to go up across the board, all the bargaining units. I also have athletes as children and a musician as my oldest child. So I believe in preserving all those programs, increasing salaries and benefits, and doing that in a way by where we've taken a fine-tooth comb to the budget. Let's take 40, 50, 60 hours a week, take a fine-tooth comb to it. Let's perhaps not execute on things like social emotional learning, all the salaries involved. How about we keep that at home for the families to dictate and decide how that's handled? I voted no on the budget. I just don't believe that dictates that come down from New York State that cost us, again, projection. What are these going to cost us? They fund it today, they don't fund it tomorrow. What is it going to cost us? I don't think we need air conditioning in the schools because I don't believe that I had air conditioning, nor do we need year-round schooling. So that's my standing on the budget.
Thank you, Carrie. Okay, we're going to move on to our next question. Daniel, you were going to start. Oh, I need to give you the microphone, I'm sorry. Okay, I'll start asking questions as I walk towards you. Regardless of the state laws, what is your personal feelings about teaching critical race theory? And how do you personally feel about allowing a transgender male play in female sports?
Yeah, critical race theory is one big lie. That's all I can say. It's just one big lie. Critical race theory is there to divide people. The real racists are the ones that are proposing this critical race theory. And as far as letting boys into girls' locker rooms, I am totally against that. You know, there's not much more to say. As a biologist, I believe that there are 2 genders, and that's what we have, and that's determined by our chromosomes and by our physiology and by our anatomy. Thank you.
Thank you. Do you need me to repeat that, Anthony?
I don't think so. I don't think so. Yeah, so CRT, that's garbage. That's complete garbage. There's a lot in the curriculum that is completely unnecessary and just indoctrinating the children into this. Why are we talking so much about race to children? Why are we not talking about skills-based learning? Why are we not talking about farming? Why are we not talking about trades? Why are we not talking about math, reading? Why are these not in the curriculum? Why does CRT, critical race theory, have to come in? It's complete nonsense. And I'm really tired of it. I'm sick and tired of it, actually. Children are not born racist. And I'm going right back to it again. In the Gospels of Jesus Christ, he does not talk about race. We are all equal. And it's nonsense just going over this completely. And of course with the transgender, oh my gosh, that's body mutilation. And that's no good. And to bring that into school, that's disgusting. Going into the LGBTQ movement, how someone lives their personal life as an American, that's your choice. Do not bring it into the schools to sexualize the children, okay? Just come in here, teach the children what they need to learn, the basics, and keep the sexualization out of the schools. Thank you.
Do you need me to repeat the question, Eddie?
No, thanks, Laura. Okay, just to make one thing clear for everyone, critical race theory is not part of any curriculum in the Wappingers Central School District. It is not in any building, it is not in any classroom, and definitely not that I'm aware of. And it is not something that the leadership of this district is a proponent of. They are not in favor of it. I do not support that. If you're interested in that theory, which is more of a sociology course, take it in college and study it there. It's not part of a K through 12 curriculum. With regards to sports and whatnot, you know, this is a big issue with Title IX. I'm a huge sports guy. I'll put on a college female basketball game before I'll put on a male basketball game. College female sports, high school female sports. We had a championship RCK girls basketball championship this year, okay? The work that the girls did, that should not go unnoticed at all. I do not want issues with Title IX affected. Female sports have come a long way in the last 10 to 15 years. They're now on ESPN. You didn't find them there 20 years ago. They're on primetime TV. So I don't support that.
Cheryl?
Okay, first of all, I don't believe in critical race theory in the schools. I don't incorporate it into my syllabus in my classroom. I don't believe we need it in the schools. What I do believe is that we need to focus on the things in the curriculum that will help our children. We need to focus on getting back to developing basic skills. We need to move away from abstract concepts that we're bringing to the minds of children that are dealing in concrete terms. We need to work on those basic skills. We need to bring in more vocational opportunities, and we need to have that traditional focus in education. When we look at the second part of this question, focusing just on the Title IX aspect, it's really disheartening the way that when we look at requests for rights from one group, they're pushing away the rights that other groups have fought for over the years. And what is happening in women's sports, it's doing away with female identity and with female opportunities that have taken decades to come about. There has to be some type of a solution, but I really don't believe that it's the best thing for women's sports to have trans men competing. Thank you.
Thank you. Virgil?
Right. Taking into account everything all my esteemed candidates here have said, I don't support the politicization of race being taught. However, in keeping things fairly, we do need to discuss certain inequities that have existed in society, and there's a perfectly good historical context for providing that. That said, we don't need to activate the racist card as an explanation for everything. I'm the child of immigrant parents. They came here, they struggled, they worked hard, I worked hard to adopt and acculturate to America. We should be emphasizing the positive attributes and aspects that people from all over the world come here and make do of. That's a way we can kind of address that and focus on the positive side of it, rather than using race as the basis for negative attributes. I'm against CRT in that sense. Coming back to the sports in Title IX, I agree with everything everyone said pretty much up here. Young women learn many of the same values that young men learn on teams in sports, and they distinguish themselves, differentiate themselves, and are able to achieve. I support maximizing those opportunities, not watering it down or getting it caught up in a larger national debate.
Thank you. Ariana?
Yes, I am completely against critical race theory, and I like to research things before I just start jumping on a bandwagon saying I don't like something, so I did my homework and studied it. And critical race theory is a Marxist ideology, and that Marxist ideology created by Karl Marx was to divide people by class. But it's being used now since the 1990s to divide people by race. And this thing has been developing over many years. It's undoing the Civil Rights Act of 1964, and it's actually making more harm in society because children don't see race. In fact, I love using personal examples. My young daughter had said to me when the BLM movement was going on that she was afraid that like African American people didn't like her and she was afraid to cross the street. Now, it's not right for anyone to experience any kind of racism or anything of that sort, of course not. But we aren't a racist country. The United States is not a racist country. Do we have to fix things? Absolutely. We never say throw the baby out with the bathwater. But what's happening here is it's changing our history, and children still need to know this history. And on the question of trans men and female sports, absolutely not. That's another crazy thing, and go back to common sense. Women should be in the sports themselves. Thank you.
Thank you. Carrie?
I'm going to put the second part of the question to bed before the first one, and that is transgender sports is abhorrent, and I hope I conveyed my opinion on that. As far as CRT, no, actively, is that in the curriculum? Is it being taught? No, I think it's important for parents to keep their ears to the ground. I think the word is yet, and I think that we need to maintain our ears on the ground and make sure that this doesn't happen. Also, we need to be mindful that things could be taught by another name. Things could be, you know, people are very subjective, we're human. What goes on in one classroom might not go on in another, and vice versa. And while it may not be maintained in the curriculum as CRT yet, I think that we need to stand for something or we fall for everything. I think it's important that parents actually come to the meetings. They have a voice. On occasion, they attend. When it's mentioned, why don't they come and why don't they have those voices carried? Because they feel like they're stifled. Because they feel like no one's listening to them. Because no one responds. Because they're, you know, it just doesn't make any sense. They feel like they're not heard, and we all want to be heard. I think a way of working is to kind of change that. I think as far as CRT is concerned, I kind of got off track. The mistakes that we learn throughout history, we learn from mistakes, right? We learn a lot from those mistakes. And I think that we need to remember the mistakes and the diversity that we have. We need to maintain it. Thank you.
Thank you. Marie? Microphone.
CRT. That would probably be the hot button topic. It's something everybody wants to go to. Is there probably a line somewhere in a book underneath a picture that somebody could say is part of CRT? Yes. I've heard that there's literature possibly in our schools. I've specifically asked police to send me where that is, what it is, so that I can investigate it. I'm not for CRT. I think that we should just teach inclusively across the board. The administration is not looking to engage CRT. Might it come down the road? Yes, but right now it's not, and we are keeping an eye on it. We're keeping an eye on the bills through our Legislative Action Committee. We are keeping an eye on different things that are going across the country. We cannot control what happens in California or in Ohio or any of these other states, but we can watch what happens and we can be made aware of it. As far as the transgenders in female sports, I personally think it has taken too long for young girls to be able to get to the level they're at. We have got some great ones in our school district. I don't believe that they belong in our sports, but I do believe there is a place for them, and I feel like we should be able to find that place for them so that they also are comfortable.
Thank you. Okay, Anthony, we're going to start with you next. How do you feel about federal and state funding grants and how they impact district policies, finances, and tied to student proficiency?
Anything federal and state related needs to get the heck out of Wappinger Central School District. We are an independent school district and we cannot be beholden to the government anymore. As a school board, it's got to be the parents and the children, and that's it. And if the money has to be made up somehow, then negotiations have to be made. Because we need the federal government and we need the state government removed or reduced as much as possible from our lives, because we know at the local levels what is best for ourselves. We don't need big daddy government telling us what to do. So when it comes to federal and state government grants, no, absolutely not, because they come with strings attached. And those strings dictate the curriculum, they dictate taxes, and I'm tired of it. So anything regarding the federal and state government, I want it completely out of the Wappingers Central School District.
Thank you. Would you like me to repeat the question, Eddie?
Sure.
Okay. How do you feel about federal and state funding grants and how they impact district policies, finances, and are tied to student proficiency?
Well, I guess that really comes down to what type of federal and state grants are we talking about? Are we talking about a teacher who's looking to get some money because they want to introduce a specific program, but there's no money for it in the budget? That's one aspect. The other things, if we're talking about grant money that just came from ESSA, which is from the American Rescue Plan, which is grant money that was given to school districts in order to help them reopen from COVID. There's nothing tied to it that forces a district to take this money and do something. It was given to us. You were given a guideline to follow. So I agree a little bit what Anthony has said. We don't want to be, stuck getting a grant and then being forced to follow what the grant says and says, well, if you want the money, you have to do this. We do have to be extremely leery when it comes to something like that. But federal grants and state grants can be important to school districts to help when there isn't money to do the things that administration wants to introduce to help students and help. So it could be a bit of a slippery slope, but again, are you talking about, if the grant is coming specifically from the federal government and that school districts have to take it and use the money, we need to be leery of it. If it's something, as I said, where a teacher is looking to write a grant to get money because they want to create a program or something for kids, well, I think that's a positive. But yes, we do have to be very careful when it comes to federal and state grants.
Thank you. Did you want me to repeat that question, Cheryl? Okay.
I agree with that idea that you really need to look at the specific federal grants and state grants. They always come with strings. There are some that tie us to future commitments. Right now, some of the funding that we're getting is financing our pilot program in universal pre-K. And there are parents who love this program and parents who want it expanded and parents who want it to continue. I'm looking at the bottom line of the numbers that we're getting. I'm saying, well, wait a minute, this is something that as a community we're going to have to look at when that federal funding stops and look at if we can actually afford to keep that program that benefits families. If you look at the breakdown of what we get in federal funding, some of these things we can't just say no to. There are mandates for what we have to provide to special education students. We have to provide those things whether we accept the federal and state funding for them or not. In fact, we've talked a little bit about some of the money that the state owes us. The federal government promised when they put in IDEA that they would fund special education at 40%. We've been getting 14%. So you, the taxpayers, have been paying money that the federal government is saying for services that we have to provide. Another thing that we get is 52% back of a refund on your money for what we put into capital improvements. We need to look very closely, individually, at all of these sources of funding. It's a double-edged sword.
Thank you. Virgil?
As a general rule, anytime someone gives you any money, you should be very wary of it. Very rarely do these things come with no strings attached, tying into what everyone else said. And if you listen close enough, you start getting caught up in a, well, what about this, what about that, what if, what if, what if? This is where the problem starts. And then you start hearing how people are gonna fight for unfunded mandates. Unfunded mandates that originally surfaced themselves as grants, where the short-term focus was to immediately take the money, do whatever, and not think about the long-term ramifications. That is one of the problems we have here. It's very rarely assessing long-term risk. So in general, I would say no, because you're reducing, by saying no, you're reducing government reliability. At the end of the day, the board is supposed to be beholden to the people in the community, right? So the accountability lies here. If you keep asking why your taxes go up or why spending's going here, and you have a bureaucratic answer that says, well, we have to do it because of mandates, that's not really an answer. That is just another word for an excuse in passing the buck. If you want that kind of stuff to stop, you have to change up and bring in some fresh faces.
Thank you. Ariana, did you need me to repeat the question?
No, it's
Okay.
Yes, there are federal grants that I find very suspicious. I think there are strings attached, and namely with our conversation about CRT is one in particular. This administration had actually proposed regulation to coerce schools to teach CRT, and in turn would get federal grant money. So that's what some grant money can do. It can really change the politics and the landscape. When we're talking about federal grants that are meticulously designated with no strings attached, like for sports or starting a school band or increasing the art program or buses that help different teams of sports get to the other high schools and swimming, then that's a wonderful grant. But when you look at the details of certain grants in particular, that's really where we have to have a very clear eye. Grants that are going to be beholden, make the school and the community beholden to certain regulations, like, let's say, a mandate, in order to get the school money. Like, it could come up in the future that you could get grant money, but everyone has to wear a mask now. So we really have to look at the details of the grants and then decide and go from there. Knowing the details is everything. Thank you.
Thank you. Carrie?
I think that there are well-intended grants, and I think that many times people set out with the best of intentions. I think there are controversial ones, sometimes not as obvious, nevertheless controversial. I think that we need to, again, project. So working in business for lots of years and running a house and a budget, I have to think. Let's see, if I want to have steak today, we're all going to eat steak, but after we eat that steak, I can't feed anyone for a month. Or we could eat a half of a peanut butter and jelly for the next 30 days. We're going to have grumbling bellies, but we're going to live. With this universal pre-K, it's awesome, it excites a lot of people, but what's going to happen down the road? We need to project. That's how we end up in these situations where everyone's scratching their head about ballooning and inflating budgets. We are independently elected representatives by the people. And so we need to make sure that we're doing what the people want too. And I think that, people sit on a dais and make decisions, and I don't know how often it reflects the voice of the people. And I think that's the genesis, again, for me, and why I'm here. These grants, they end up, again, as many people said, you're beholden to the dictates of the state again. And finally, I don't believe that education should be education by state government, right? I think that there's a conflict here. Why does the government educate our children? I believe in vouchers. I believe that.
Thank you, Carrie.
Grants and what they are tied to. Some of them do have strings, and we have turned down some of those grants. We actually research a lot of them. There's a lot out there that we never apply for because, yes, the staff looks into all of them. But some of the things that the grants have done, Future Farmers of America was helped to be established in our district within the last 2 years. And that was through grant money. We also have grant money that is part of your capital improvement. 52% of it is brought back through those grant monies, so that's not put onto the taxpayers. You have part of it for transportation. They talk about the $2.2 million, which is a rolling budget problem with our buses. We replace them every year. It's one car payment off, one car payment on. But part of that is through grant money. Yeah, we have to buy buses, and yes, we have to buy them through about 10 different vendors that we have a choice from. But we're also looking at other ways to do it. Is there some grants that have some bad things? Yes. We don't always take them, but that doesn't mean we shouldn't investigate all of the avenues to help alleviate some of the costs put onto our public.
That's okay. I think I got it, yeah. So I think it was Ronald Reagan who said that the closest thing that we have to immortality is a government program. And so you have to ask yourself, if a school receives a grant to start a program, what happens when the grant ends? Does the program end? Or if in order for the program to continue, is that going to be added on to the taxpayers of the community? And so this is a way of opening the door to, in my mind, to raising taxes. The other thing is, if what Cheryl said is correct, that all grants come with strings attached, then we need to cut those strings. I'm not in favor of the federal government or the state government controlling education at the local level. That's what we're here for. We're here to represent you guys, and not the state or the federal government. You know, this idea of, you know, are there good grants or bad grants? Again, that has to be very much investigated. And right now, I don't think that there are any, if there's strings attached to it, it's not a good grant. Thank you.
Okay, we have 2 questions left of the evening since the candidates have agreed to take less time on their answers. Before we get there and we ask the final 2 questions, I just want to acknowledge that our board president, Mr. Lumia, is here tonight. I think I see one of our trustees, Mr. Odoms, Mr. Spencer, and I believe I saw John Morgan, one of our trustees. If everybody could raise their hand. Thank you for coming. I know how important this is. As well, I just want to acknowledge Mrs. Cooter. Debbie Cooter was a former board president prior to my tenure, and she came because she wanted to help, so thank you, Debbie. At this time, I'd ask you all to give an applause to the candidates. Sitting on the Board of Education is a very, very tall order. Sometimes it's thankless, but sometimes it's very rewarding, and I know how hard it is. These are tough decisions. You have to make decisions based upon the information that you're provided, and you don't have much time. So the discussions are very healthy. Even tonight, they're very healthy regardless of your feelings towards a candidate. For them to come and to show up to want to do something better for our students, the consumers, those are why we're here. It's not just a business. We're here business for children. So I thank you. I know it was a big learning experience for me, but it's one that I'll never regret. So thank you all for coming tonight, as well, the staff for always being so supportive, and Mr. and Mrs. Evol, I don't know if you're still here, but if you are, thank you, because if it wasn't for you, this stage would not be functioning right now, so thank you. But we're going to move on to the last 2 questions, and hopefully the candidates will stick around if anybody has any other questions. So we're going to start with Mr. Sloshower. And the question is, how do you believe the district should address the constitutional right of separation of church and state?
Are we talking entitlement law or what?
That's the question. How do you believe the district should address the constitutional right of separation of churches?
Well, look, everyone has the right for free speech and to express themselves. You know, having religion in a public school, I just don't think it's, it's something that's appropriate, but that's my opinion. There's Catholic schools, there's private schools, there's other religious, or there's yeshivas, there's different places if families feel the need. It's just from a public school standpoint, they always keep saying separation of church and state. We shouldn't have these discussions in public school. The world and the country has evolved with so many different religions and so many different, people coming into this country that have so many different beliefs. Are we going to spend time, talking about, Christianity, Judaism, Muslims, and Indian faith and things of that nature? with all honesty, I think there's an appropriate place for that. I just don't feel that it's within the public school setting.
Cheryl, do you need me to repeat that question?
First of all, the way the question is worded, there is no constitutional right of separation of church and state. The Constitution does grant the right to freedom of religion, but it keeps the government and public bodies like the schools from establishing an accepted religion. There is a place for religion in the schools, and if you follow the history of Supreme Court decisions, any prayer in school, any other religious observance in school has to be student-led. It cannot be facilitated by an administrator or employee of the school district. Students are free to practice their religion. Families who need time off to observe religious holidays, that's an excused absence from school. Students who are fasting during Ramadan or who are keeping kosher for Passover or who have other dietary regulations have the right in school to be able to follow their practices. Students can come together and organize groups, clubs like the OMG Christian Club in the school. It's just something that it should not be institutionalized in the school and led by the school itself. There is freedom for students and for families for student-led religion.
Thank you, Cheryl. Virgil?
Could you please read the question?
Sure. How do you believe the district should address the constitutional right? No, sorry. I thought you were...
How do you believe the district should address the constitutional right of separation of church and state?
Basically, I'm in agreement that I don't think the school should be establishing a particular religion. I also don't think it should be prohibiting it or reducing it. If a child chooses to pray on a playground, I particularly don't see that as some threat to society. If it's student-led, I am all for it, I support it, as long as it's not being faculty-led or driven in one way, shape, or form. Second, there's a great misunderstanding about the Constitution as it applies to schools, with speech, religion, and other things. By the way, students don't really have a whole lot of constitutional rights. There's this thing called the Code of Conduct, Student Handbook. Using profane language is not allowed, and you'll be punished. Therefore, there's all sorts of set rules and limits on how one may engage themselves on school grounds during school hours, especially as a student. Bringing it back to the religious question, if it's student-led, if there's no reduction of it, I don't see a particular issue or problem. I just don't think the school should be setting the religion only in as much as saying that government would seek to corrupt it.
Thank you. Ariana, did you need me to repeat that?
No, that's okay. I think that the creation of the church and state, separation of church and state, was originally to protect churches and protect faith. So it's interesting how it's used in today's society as if church and faith threatens society. That's not why it was created. It was to protect the church and to protect faith. I don't think that's such a bad thing anywhere in the world these days. I'll just say that as a broad stroke. I don't think what's threatening society is a belief in God or a higher power or anything good. I think that what we're facing now is we do need more faith in our life. Do I think it belongs in a public school? I would say no, you shouldn't pray necessarily in class as a cultivated class activity. But if a child wants to pray before a test and wants to put their hands together, if they want to wear a cross or a Jewish star or whatever the faith they believe, if they want to pray before a sports game, I think that's wonderful. I personally grew up at a time when we were able to sing Christmas songs in grammar school, and we sang about Hanukkah. It was beautiful. I wasn't Jewish, and at the time I wasn't practicing Catholic, but I enjoyed what the meaning of the holiday was. And with that, I appreciated different cultures and faiths. So it actually opens people's minds when they're able to express it. Thank you.
Thank you. Carrie?
I maintain what I had said earlier. I think that in school, core subjects are to be taught, and I think it's up to individual families to practice their religions at home. Having said that, we are a country founded on Christian values. When they say the pledge every day, they say God. I think it's important to honor each and every individual's religious preference, who they pray to, so on and so forth. I don't think that educators can perform these tasks in the public school. And I think that I agree with Ariana and amplify what she said. You know, if a child wants to pray, I don't think they should be mocked or, you know, I think I would want to protect and maintain that. And I think that in my particular case, I'm seeking an education for my children where faith and theology are a part of the curriculum. If that's what you choose, then hopefully you'd have an opportunity to pick a private school that offers that. But again, never forgetting that we are a country founded on Christian values, God's in our pledge, honoring each individual, diverse individual's religious preference is important. Thank you.
Thank you. Marie?
Yeah, church and state. Yes, I do believe that there needs to be a separation as far as we've stated. The school cannot mandate it or force it or lead it. But if a child wants to sit at lunch and pray before they eat, they have the right to. If they want to pray before they play a sports, they have the right to. There are some religious and Christian clubs in our schools, and they have the right to gather. They are student-led, and we honor that for them because that is their right. I'm a Christian, and that's my belief. But we cannot make it part of our curriculum as far as it being a class of that statute. That's when you have the choice to send your child to a Catholic school or a Christian school or a Jewish school or a Muslim school, whatever you choose, if that is your choice. But this is a public school, so we must be open to all. And that's pretty much how I feel.
Thank you. Daniel?
Thank you. I think I have a question. I support separation of church and state because I don't want the state infringing on religious freedoms. I think that every child should be able to practice their religion, especially in an institution where their parents are paying for it. And I certainly don't want the state teaching religion. I want the state out of that field altogether. Now, the argument was made about diversity of religions and how should a school accommodate that, but yet somehow nobody makes that argument when it comes to transgenderism. You know, how are we going to deal with boys who feel like girls, girls who feel like boys, boys who might feel like a girl on a Thursday but not on a Friday? So nobody talks about that, and yet somehow it seems to be a problem when it comes to dealing with religion, which in my mind, this society could probably use a little bit more religion. Thank you.
Anthony?
I wonder if this had to do with some campaign signs out there, blue and white, trusting God and Christ is King. So again, I go back to the Constitution for the state of New York, right? I'm not sure if many people read the Constitution for the state of New York, but I'll reiterate the preamble. We, the people of the state of New York, are grateful to Almighty God for our freedom in order to secure its blessing to establish this Constitution. Now, I have no shame saying that I believe in the one true, powerful, and almighty God through the blessings of our Lord and Savior, Jesus Christ. I am not here to impart any religion onto any student. I would love to see more Bible study programs come to Wappingers Central School District. And I hope just by having the conversation, more students will be encouraged to do that. Because I will say myself, in my 20s, was an absolute maniac. And then I started getting into the Bible, and my whole life changed. And I think that can be a powerful lesson for a lot of young people. And I hope that they can come to that confidence where they can come and read the Bible, because there's so many great blessings and so many understandings that come from this. So again, I'm not trying to impart an establishment of religion onto someone. I'm just hoping to introduce the Bible to more students, because I think faith has to be part of the program for children. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, this is going to be our last question. It's going to start back with Cheryl. Actually, it's your kind of question. Just happens to be. Current statistics show there is almost 25% children aged 3 to 17 with developmental delays and learning disabilities. Do you feel the district is currently meeting the needs of these children, and if so, how? Now, as a second part, for those that aren't involved in the district as far as special ed is concerned, do you feel that parents should have more of input for their children with needs? We'll get to that. Go ahead.
Okay, can you repeat it again, because there were a lot of parts to that.
Your part's pretty simple. Current statistics show that there is almost 25% of children aged 3 to 17 with developmental delays and learning disabilities. Do you feel that the district is currently meeting the needs of these children, and if so, how? I guess, and if not, how?
I think that the district is making an attempt, but I don't think we are meeting the needs, especially if you look at the complications with learning loss from the pandemic. One of the things that we are seeing is more and more children are being diagnosed with learning disabilities. I have been an advocate for special education students, as I've said, in this district for 17 years. I have served for probably 8 years, donating my time to advocate with parents at their children's CSE meetings. Sometimes I believe that parents are not listened to as closely as they should be in that situation. Parents are supposed to be a member of the team that sets each child's individual education plan, and I think we need to listen more to parents who know the needs of their children. I also think as a community, we need to learn more about how we can support our special education students, particularly in our more inclusive settings. I'll give you an example with a student I have who came out to his classmates in my class as autistic. Once we learned what this student's needs and issues were and mannerisms, the class was able to teach themselves how to help this student fit in and help his performance. So we really do need to do a lot better for our students. Thank you.
Thank you. Virgil, do you want me to repeat the question?
Yes, could you please?
Sure. Current statistics show that there is almost 25% of children aged 3 to 17 with developmental delays and learning disabilities. Do you feel that the district is currently meeting the needs of these children? If so, how? And perhaps maybe in your case, if you don't have any relevant information, do you feel that parents should be more a part of the process of classification and supports?
Answering the last part of your question first, I say yes. It's real simple. When I talk about parents' rights, anything having to do with the health and well-being of a child should involve the parents, especially on education. Now, these are not my words. This comes from the New York State report card. The school, Wappingers schools, have received 1,003 school improvement funds targeting certain areas. At the 4th grade, at the grade 4 level, students with disabilities, 73% are below basic reading. Math, 61% are below. Moving on to grade 8, 8th grade. 64% of students with disabilities are at the 64% marker. Only 27% are meeting basic. And in math, 68% are below basic. And then 23% are at basic. I could go down these numbers all day long, which once again is the New York State report card. We're clearly not making the mark. Rather than point fingers, we need real solutions. Instead of spending all this extra money transporting a lot of these children to BOCES, let's plus up what we have here and redirect the money we can save toward giving them the support they need.
Thank you. Ariana, did you need me to repeat the question?
As a parent, I have firsthand knowledge of this as well. I have one daughter of mine with special needs and had an IEP, and I attended CSE meetings. And I can tell you it was a heartbreak. I was awoken to a very different life when I went to my first meeting and learned that I wasn't being told what type of supports my daughter could have. I wasn't told who I could turn to. I left in tears, and for that year of my life, I can tell you all I did was cry and eat. And I think any parent of a special needs child knows they need a lot more than what they're getting. And they often have to rally to get heard, to get help, to get noticed. I know I did. I went through papers and papers. I had to get an advocate. I even had to contact a special needs lawyer to help me navigate through the system, and they told me how hard it is. And I understand there were budgets, and when we talked up here about budgets, that's where a lot of money should go, is to helping these special needs, because they're not. And they're the ones that suffered even more through this pandemic with issues, whether it was autism and they were home, or masks, or that. We don't even know all of the damage that's been done. But for certain, I can attest that more needs to be done for the special needs and special education. Thank you.
Thank you. Carrie, do you need me to repeat the question?
No, thank you. In fact, many of the district resources go toward that end. There is a stark improvement. I heard from a parent of a dyslexic student recently, and she compared and contrasted the experience 10, 15 years ago of a friend of hers, and how the child, wasn't classified and so on and so forth, and how today her experience was very different. So certainly improvement in a lot of district resources toward that end. Having said that, it is not the sole responsibility of the district to navigate those waters. These children are in the care of the district. We would hope they're receiving the necessary engagement and studies, but there are other resources available as well, and it's the parent and the family's responsibility to also engage in the other resources. I just think that to singularly point out the school as the sole proprietor and responsibility for these needs is not just either. But certainly there are stark improvements in that area. Thank you.
Thank you. Marie, do you need me to repeat the question?
Okay, as a special ed mom, as a special ed advocate, and probably before I became on the board, the superintendent of special education's biggest nightmare. I was the one that would go in and sit in CSE meetings and help parents try and fight for their rights of services that they needed. We talk about special ed and sourcing it out to BOCES. There is no physical way for us to be able to house the amount of programs that are needed, and that is the reason why they are sent to specialized schools. There's a lot of districts that will ship their students, so to speak, down to Westchester because only 2 kids in your entire district have that need. And unfortunately, we cannot develop all the programs. We do try to develop quite a few. We spend $43 million on special education. It's not an easy thing, and it's really not enough, but yet it is a big chunk of our budget. These kids need so much, and their cost per pupil is a lot higher than an average cost per pupil in our district, which is lower than the surrounding districts. but we do need to improve more areas. It is something that I work on a regular basis and have meetings continuously in district office and with the rest of the board in order to fight for more needs and programs. Thank you.
Thank you. Daniel?
Could you read the question for me one more time?
Yeah. Current statistics show there are approximately 25% of children aged 3 to 17 with developmental delays and learning disabilities. Do you feel that the district is currently meeting the needs of these children, and if so, how? And as a parent, do you feel that parents should be more involved in providing supports and making their individualized education plans?
Yeah. Yeah, I think that as a society we're failing these children. 25% is a big number, and my understanding is that this number is increasing. I see this on the college level. Every semester I am making more and more accommodations for students who are learning disabled, and I don't know how they're going to function once they get out into the workplace. So my answer is, it's not just the school district. I think as a society, we're failing these students, and we need to find out why this is happening. Is it environmental? Is it genetic? Is it, who knows what it is? I think a lot more research needs to be done in this area. Should parents be involved? Absolutely. Parents should be involved in every medical decision that concerns their children, and parents have to get more involved with this. This is basically where education starts. It starts with the parent, whether you have a special needs child or not. Thank you.
Thank you. Can you repeat the question, Anthony?
No, okay. Thank you, Lori. So I just want to follow up on what Daniel said there. I think one of the root causes of all these developmental issues is about, I believe, 70 plus shots are now on the roster for these children. How many shots do these children need? And I think that's a huge problem. So I don't necessarily believe that the school district can provide the answers that folks are looking for, but I think society at large, we need to start questioning what we are putting into our bodies. And then also, how are they impacting our bodies? Also think about what kind of food that you're intaking. Are you drinking soda all the time? Are you having junk food all the time? These are things that could potentially help. Because when it comes to the school district level, when these children have the developmental issues, I'm not so certain what else can be done. I think Dan made a fine point that it's going to be tough for these children when they get into the workforce and try to provide for themselves. But I think the bigger picture is that we have to take a mean look in the mirror in society and say, what are we putting in our bodies, and are we comfortable with that? Thank you.
Thank you.
You need me to repeat the question, Eddie?
No, that's okay, Laura. So just to piggyback a little bit of what Ms. Johnson had said, yeah, it's a $43 million part of our budget with roughly 1,800 students. Parents definitely should be involved. You know, my wife is a special education teacher in another school district, and I hear what she says and what goes on. It's not an easy thing, but parents and schools have to work together to try to figure out what's best for the kids. You know, going a little back, about 20 or so years ago, there was something that came out of the federal government called No Child Left Behind. And I've always said No Child Left Behind has left every child behind, not only special ed, but a general ed student. By creating inclusion classes, services that these particular students need, and some of the information and statistics that Virgil gave with regards to the low percentages is because these students don't get, for the most part, you know, the time that the teachers need. And by the way, we have a fantastic special education department in this district. Do you know that people actually move into this district to be part of the special education program because we have fantastic teachers and TAs? Okay, is there more work to do? Absolutely. And I believe with the new leadership within this district, we're going to see some significant changes in special ed moving forward. But parents need to be involved, and there's so many different factors, and everybody made some excellent points with regards to this. These kids need our attention, and we have to do what's best for them. And parents definitely have to be involved in the decision-making for what's best for the kids.
Thank you. That concludes our portion of the questions. We're going to move into closing statements. I am going to start with Virgil. If you'd like, you have 2 minutes. You'll be given a 15-second reminder. Thank you.
Okay. I just want to thank everyone for coming out tonight. I want to reiterate some basic points here. The goal, my main goal in doing this is to A, serve the community, serve the students, because at the end of the day, the students are our customers. The product will speak for itself. Are the students coming out equipped to deal with the challenges of tomorrow? How do you know I believe in what I say? I served in the military for over 8.5 years, and I served in some very hostile zones because I believe America is the greatest country in the world. I put my life on the line. I was willing to die for this country. If that isn't enough to convince you that I stand behind my convictions, let my long career in the Department of Defense and national security take you down that other step. I submitted myself to numerous instances and challenges. I'm not afraid to deal with challenges because this is what we need. Tough times call for tough measures. This is not a matter of pointing blame or saying that someone's bad or calling people names. We need empathy, outreach, and we need real, genuine collaboration. This is what I've done throughout my career. I've managed cross-functional teams. I've made decisions that have affected people's lives. The same applies here, but understand, parental rights and transparency is where it's at. There's no reason why anything here discussed this evening should be hidden. Please.
Thank you. Ariana?
Thank you so much. I had a wonderful time, so I appreciate everybody staying out tonight and hearing what we had to say. I'm an advocate for parents. That's part of why I joined up on this to run for the board. A lot of people said, oh, what's making you do it? Or I felt really compelled because I think at this time in history and in our society that it's important for parents to be heard. It doesn't mean we'll always get our way or someone's going to get their way. It's so polarized right now. We're so divided, and it's really a shame. I don't like to see that. I want to be someone to hear everybody's opinion. Everybody wants a utopia, and I think we all want what's perfect for all of us. We just have to compromise, and I think we've hardened so much that no one wants to hear the word compromise anymore. But I think when we come together, and if I were to be elected, I would want to hear what everyone has to say, and I think there's a solution to each person's problem. It may not be in the same way that everybody agrees, but there's a way to do it. And so I also find that in today's society, the kids are struggling academically, and they need more support. Maybe they need tutors after school. I know sometimes that's a struggle, especially for kids with math. We need more emphasis on the core subjects like reading and math, more time spent on that. I think keeping the arts and things that keep children enthusiastic, band, music, such programs are very vital and important. I feel that the children need help in the class. It could come from more assistance. We may need to hire, maybe there is more help in the classroom. I know some have spoken to me about per diem and they felt they weren't getting paid enough. So teachers and staff have to be paid what's going to help them to succeed. We don't want people feeling overburdened because this could be a time when people do. So in effect, I hope that I've made myself clear. I'm an advocate. I want to hear everyone's opinion. I would like us to all work together. And I'm definitely for common sense. And I feel let's do it for the kids. So thank you so much.
Thank you. Carrie?
Thank you, everyone, for the opportunity tonight and all the great questions. I'll end as I began. It's, for me, the three pillars. The children, the parents that make the decisions for the children, they are their children, and the taxpayers that we have to answer to that are going to or may not vote for us. I really believe in where innovation, progress, where they come from. And they come from diversity of thought. They come from challenging status quos, from getting out of groupthink, from being a disruptor. That's actually a professional term, being a disruptor. What I've experienced on the board for over the last year is a lot of people that I believe they care. I believe that their intentions are good, and I think everyone at the core really cares about the kids. I also think there's a lot of groupthink, and I think that we have to make some changes. And if I really believe that if I stand for something or fall for everything, what I stand for is why I came here. And if the consequences to standing for what I stand for mean that I'll be removed from the board, if that's the threat of consequences, then so be it. I think we need to push back. I don't think the state needs to be educating our children. I think we need to exercise a lot more of our rights. I think what we saw 2 years ago and leading up to today, I think it's very scary. And I think that if we look back in history, if not for the disruptors of the Boston Tea Party, we'd still be under British rule. You have to look throughout history. We have to learn from those mistakes, but we also have to apply the things that worked. And again, innovation, right? Progress, where does it come from? Changing things up, challenging the status quo. The kids deserve it, the taxpayers deserve it, and I know as a parent, I'm going to exercise my parental rights. Thank you.
Yes, first of all, I would like to thank everybody for coming out. I want to thank everyone that helped put this together. I started 3 years ago, 7 months in, pandemic hit, and it has not been a normal term, period. Taxes. I get it. I pay taxes. We just bought a house this past year, again, and my husband said I can get a lot more in the next district over, but it would have cost me over $400 more a month because of their school taxes for a house that cost $100,000 less than what I purchased. That's the difference in the taxes between some of these districts. We do need to watch where our money is going, and it is something that I do every single year since before I started on this board, and will continue to do, no matter if I'm on or not. I've been an advocate for all children across the board because they need us to stand up for them so that they have the programs that are needed, including special ed, which costs a ton of money. We have to learn to work together. Sometimes it's not easy. We are 9 people. We are 1 vote of 9, and sometimes we're like a bunch of family and we don't always agree, and sometimes it's bad Christmas dinner or Hanukkah dinner or whatever it is. But we do try to come together for the kids. And I just believe that you just never quit. I made a commitment to this board and I won't back down, and I will continue to fight for these kids no matter what happens. And I thank you very much for all of your time. Thank you.
Thank you. Daniel?
Thank you. Yeah, thanks to everybody, especially everybody coming out tonight. And I'd like to just thank the school board members here. I'm beginning to realize what a job this is, and I think that all of you that sit on the school board are heroes. We may not always agree on things. Surprisingly, though, I think that we agree a lot. I think our priorities are all the same, and that priority is the children. That's still my priority, the children, the community, the parents, the taxpayers. And I think that we need to keep working. We need to redouble our efforts with respect to preparing children for either going out into the workplace or going out into colleges. There are so many problems now, especially with COVID just coming in, but there have been problems before, and we need to get over those hurdles. And I would work hard to get over those hurdles. There. Thank you.
I would like to thank everyone coming out. Lori, thank you for moderating. And before I came here tonight, I prayed for everyone up here on this board here. I prayed for all the current school board members. I prayed for everyone who came here tonight for safe travels to and from. Because there is no fear in love, as the great book teaches us. And there's so much love that comes from being a human being and being someone who certainly loves Jesus Christ. And my friends, I do not know if you will vote for me, but I am very appreciative of having 8 candidates up here and for people stepping up into the community and trying to do right for the children. Because our children are the future for the generations here to come. And if we do not train the children properly, we're all going to have to answer very solemn questions in the future. So the better that we do now, the better that we can do for ourselves in this great country of ours. And I just want to close from the book of Proverbs, chapter 22, verse 6. Train up a child in the way he should go, and when he is old, he will not depart from it. Thank you.
Lori, I want to thank you for moderating. I want to also thank Chief Road, Evans, and WAP Juniors, PTAs, as well as Mr. Sipe here at RCK for hosting. Those of you who know me, and those of you who may not know me, for the past 9 years, what I have tried to do as a community member and as a board member. 3 years before I joined the board, I come to every meeting and stand at the microphone and point out to administration and the board what I thought was wrong with what was going on in the district. It turned into about 3 years of must-see TV when I came to the microphone, explaining and pointing out things that I felt needed to be changed and fixed. Fighting against Common Core, the redistricting, or the closing of Vassar Elementary School. My personality is, I may be, bitch and moan and complain about a lot of things, but then I decide, I step up and I make myself available to help solve problems. So that's what I've been trying to do for the past 6 years that I've been on this board. I've dedicated an enormous amount of time creating a legislative action committee to fight New York State, with monies that are owed to us, what's right for our kids, what's right for our parents, what's right for our district. I've created, as I said earlier, liaison positions, with municipalities in order to, form a relationship where we can work together for the community. My whole purpose of being on this board is to help these kids and help this community as best as I could, and not just be somebody that stands at a microphone and complains or goes on Facebook and complains about things. I personally stepped up to be part of the solution to help this community. And I ask you for your support once again on May 17th, and I appreciate the time tonight. And I also want to thank everybody up here tonight. Gave some great answers and gave some great insight on a lot of things that we all need to work together on to better this district and for the future of all of our kids. So thank everybody, and thank you all for coming again.
Thank you, Evans. And Mrs. Miggets.
I'd like to thank everyone for giving up their Wednesday evening and coming out here to listen to what we've had to say. I'd also like to thank Kathleen, Isis, Laura, Lori, and Mr. Sipe for their hard work the past couple of weeks to bring this together so that we could all be here. I think that the children of the Wappingers Central School District are exceedingly lucky. They have 8 dedicated individuals sitting up here who all want to put forth their efforts to improve things for our students. I'm an educator. I've been involved in education for 40 plus years. As I said, I've been involved in the district for 17 years. I'm the parent who always stepped up when the kids needed something, wanted something, and there was no one there to provide it for them. With no artistic ability, I designed sets for a play because there was no one, and the kids asked me. I have always been involved. I ask your support to put me on the board to give you a voice, but if you don't, know that the next day I will still be out there fighting for our kids, trying to get our parents organized, motivated, and involved. I think, though, that what we need to do is come together as a community, solidly put the needs of our children first, and work together to solve these problems. We're going to concentrate on our students. We're going to listen to and give voice to our parents. And we also can't forget the community members who no longer have or have never had children in the district who are paying their hard-earned money to help finance these programs. And we also need to listen to how it impacts them and what we can do. We all need to make this a great community. Thank you.
Thank you, Cheryl. This will conclude our evening. I want to thank Chief Road, Wappingers Junior High, James Evan, and all the volunteers for putting this together, as well as for RCK for hosting this for us. Please give an applause to the candidates one more time for the volunteers.
Once again, it's always my pleasure to host this event. Good luck. Thank you.